USA Wrestling has seen unprecedented success in recent years. The talent is as rich as it's ever been. Many of today's stars are already legends. For the first time ever, FloWrestling is counting down the top 100 American wrestlers of all time. To help us in this journey, we're visiting the greatest wrestling museums in the country. Where does your favorite wrestler land? Tune in each week as we get to number 1.
For most of the male wrestlers on the top 100, there's a pretty traditional route. You go Division I and then you go on to World and Olympic glory. Not for Trel Dagum.
Trel Dagum. Talk about a guy who got a late start in the sport but made the most of it. Didn't begin wrestling until his sophomore year of high school.
Here's a guy who went to Division II Nebraska Kearney, won 2 NCAA championships, and if the tournament is on the line, you want Dagum in your corner.
The senior level is where he made his stride. Trel Dagum made 6 World and Olympic teams, brought home 3 bronze medals, and every single year that Trel Dagum competed in the World or Olympic Championships, he made the bronze medal match. A big guy who could wrestle like a little guy, he could wrestle from space, had a nasty low single, and was right there with the best guys in the world throughout his entire international career.
Most will remember Russ Helixon as the wrestling voice of the Olympic Games, but he should also be a voice for those who didn't have success in college but could be successful at the international level, and he did just that.
Longtime Ohio State head coach Russ Helixon was never an NCAA All-American during his time at Wisconsin, but from 1971 through 1980, Helixon made 5 World and or Olympic teams. He was a 2-time Olympian, making the teams in 1976 and 1980. And in those 5 years he was on teams, he brought home 3 World and Olympic medals. Don Beam had an amazing career. The one thing that eluded him was the championship title. He was a 2-time All-American at Michigan State, part of their only ever team championship in 1967. He was a 5-time World and Olympic team member and a 3-time World and Olympic silver medalist. Always a bridesmaid, never the bride.
Okay, so Don Beam did not win a World or Olympic gold medal. So what? Don Beam does have a title. He won the 1971 Tbilisi tournament in the Soviet Union. Some say it's tougher than the Olympics or the World Championships because it had multiple Soviet wrestlers in the field. Don Beam may not have won the big one, but he's one of the all-time greats.
Triple C, the king of cringe, Henry Cejudo, of course, well known as a 2-division UFC champion. Before that, he had an amazing wrestling career. He was a 4-time high school state champion, no losses, 2 titles in Arizona, and then won 2 titles in Colorado.
Didn't go to college and went to the Olympic Training Center and trained in Colorado Springs. Actually made it to the final World Team Trials in 2006, where he faced world champion Sammy Henson, dropped the matches, but that was just the start of things to come.
Cejudo made the 2007 World Team and then the 2008 Olympic Team, where he won a gold medal at the time, becoming the youngest ever American to win an Olympic gold medal.
Came back briefly in 2012 to try to make another team, made it to the semifinals of the final Olympic trials, didn't make the team, but we'll always remember Henry Cejudo for blazing a trail that the United States is still building upon. When we think about all the great wrestlers that have come through the Hawkeye Wrestling program, Ed Banach has a legitimate claim as the greatest Iowa wrestler of all time.
He was the first ever 4-time NCAA finalist and 3-time NCAA champion, winning titles in 80 and 81 before dropping a wild shootout to Mark Schultz in 1982, and he came back in 83 and tacked on his 3rd NCAA championship. To this day, he owns the career record for pins at the University of Iowa with 73,
but it's more than that. It's his style, it's his pace, it's his energy. It's what he brought to the Iowa wrestling program, and that's why we're talking about him as one of the all-time greats.
As for his international career, he was a two-time world and Olympic team member, making the 1983 world team and capping things off with an Olympic gold medal in 1984. Greg Gibson was a two-time NCAA finalist for the University of Oregon. But where things get interesting is in his post-collegiate career. Usually you say freestyle or Greco. Greg Gibson was both.
You want to talk about well-rounded. Greg Gibson is the definition of well-rounded as an athlete. Here's a guy who was a two-sport star at Oregon, wrestled and played football. But then you go into wrestling. He was even more well-rounded. Greco, freestyle, and Sambo won medals in all three styles.
In 1981 and 1982, he was on the freestyle and Greco world team at the same world championships. Has anybody else done that?
No. Greg Gibson did it like no other wrestler in the United States.
He took home 3 silver medals and 1 bronze medal from the world championships. Larry Kristoff was a 2-time Division II national champion at SIU Edwardsville, a 1-time Division I runner-up. But the freestyle scene is where he shined brightest.
Larry Kristoff is way underrated. Here's a guy who was in the pioneering efforts for the United States and came away with 5 world medals. He was going against some of the toughest Soviets in the world, including Alexander Medved, who was a 10-time world and Olympic champion. Larry Kristoff certainly deserves to be remembered, and that's why he's part of the top 100.
Dawn of the internet age, Clarissa Chun was one of the faces of women's wrestling in the United States of America. The Hawaii native had a judo background, which only added to her arsenal of attacks and made her such a great competitor.
Judo's loss was wrestling's gain. Clarissa Chun started out as a 5-time junior national champion in judo before she found wrestling as a junior in high school and won the very first sanctioned girls state wrestling championship in the state of Hawaii.
She was a staple for the United States of America at 48 kilos, making 6 world and Olympic teams in her career. She was a 2008 world champion, and in 2012, she brought home a bronze medal from the London Olympic Games.
Some of her best battles were against Patricia Miranda, and that parlayed into winning an Olympic bronze medal in 2012, becoming the first and only wrestler from Hawaii to win a medal at the Olympic Games. Before there was Jordan Burroughs at Nebraska, there was Jim and Bill Shear. Keep in mind, this was at the time where Nebraska hadn't gone on a big run of NCAA champions, and Jim Shear was just the second Cornhusker to win an NCAA title. He translated that into world and Olympic success.
From 1986 to 1989, Jim Shear was the man to beat in the United States of America, making every world and Olympic team in that span. Shear was a 3-time world and Olympic medalist and was instrumental in getting wrestling reinstated into the Olympics after being dropped in 2013.
Jim Shear definitely deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore of great South Dakota wrestlers, along with his brother Bill.
Taking the Wayback Machine for this one to the late 1920s, early 1930s for Jack Van Beber. He went to Oklahoma State University, and if you remember back in the day, you were only granted 3 years of varsity wrestling.
Jack Van Beber went through Depression-era wrestling at Oklahoma A&M, winning titles in 1929, 1930, and 1931.
Before there was Cale Sanderson, there was Jack Van Beber. Van Beber undefeated on his college career, and he capped things off in 1932 with an Olympic gold medal.
How tough was Jack Van Beber? How about this? 1932 Olympics, the schedule changed and Jack Van Beber did not know about it. He had an hour to get to the Olympic venue, went on foot for the first 2 miles. Someone picked him up, took him the remaining 4 miles, went to the Olympic Stadium, and then won the gold medal over a returning gold medalist. Of all the people on the top 100, Jack Van Beber may be the toughest.
That's it for this round. Stay tuned next week to see who makes the cut.